This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Really a pleasure, big schus to be here. Thank you guys. Steve Greenwald reached out, so thank you for putting this together. Beautiful matziv. Is that not his name? What's it? Steve? Shimon? Maish. Okay, so it happens to be that wherever life takes you, try to glean and use those opportunities for growth and for practice, Olam Hamaisa. And I had things prepared, and maybe we'll get to them, maybe we won't. We'll see where this goes. But when I was driving here, there were two things that I couldn't help but not notice. Definitely not coincidental. The first one are the hills, the roads, the darkness. I think that's the best paradigm for life. I'm like, wow, if there's anything, if there was ever a journey to get somewhere, with all the almost flipping off the mountains, the darkness and brights, and it's a perfect place to come and always remember that this is the journey of life, that we're always the hills, it's the ups, it's the downs, it's the endurance, it's perseverance, it's getting through and doing whatever you can to overcome, to stay straight, to stay goal focused, goal oriented. Getting here was no simple feat. Number two, I was listening. I'm sure you guys are holding in the Jewish music, Mordechai Shapiro's recent release. It's trending on 24/6. I was just shuffling, and he has a song called Unity. And the words are, why do we need tragedy to bring unity? Something like that. And with those two things, I think that really sets the stage for what I think is important to discuss tonight. I don't view myself as one to give over, instead on the paper, Divrei Historis and Divrei Chizik. I think maybe I can give perspective, and maybe there is something to take from it. But b'siyat d'shmaya, maybe we can offer something with current events, what's going on. So, having said that, I once heard from Charlie Harari, and he went to a speaking seminar a couple years ago, and he said something amazing, not just for speaking, but for anything in life. Pasuk in Mishlei says, "La'odam ma'achei levu ma'Hashem me'ana lashen," which means Hashem is. We can plan. La'odam ma'achei lev. We can plan. We can design the heart. It's all in the heart. When it comes to the mais, when it comes to mana lashen, when it comes to bringing out execution, whatever it is, whether it's our tongue, whether it's our actions, business, family, parnot, whatever it is, it's all the Eibishter. It's always Hashem ma'ana lashen that's going to bring things to fruition, and especially in his speech to this esteemed Olam. I'm going to try, hopefully have something to give over, but it's all the Eibishter, so that's just the Divrei Hakdama. So you have to take a look at what's going on in Monsey. There was a tremendous tragedy that I'm sure we all heard of. This young man, Yisrael Meir Freeman. There's a mice with the Chafetz Chaim. There was once a Yid who came to the Chafetz Chaim, and he asked the Chafetz Chaim, he had a shayla, something on his mind, something pressing that he wanted to discuss. And the Chafetz Chaim said, like, before you go, just tell me, what's the news, what's going on in the world? And the Chafetz Chaim, and this guy, this businessman said, no, I was here, I was there. And he said, no, tell me something, tell me really. And this guy thought, like, the Chafetz Chaim was crazy, why ask me this, like, neither the Alma, what do you really care? So he says, okay, it happens to be, I heard there was this tsunami in China, and he felt uncomfortable telling this to the Chafetz Chaim. And the Chafetz Chaim was frightened, he started shaking. And he said, Midas Adin hit China, and you don't think that we have to take something from it? It's the same exact thing. There's a younger man, it could be a new city, and he lived in Haverstraw, new city, and he lives in Haverstraw, or Chestnut Ridge, wherever it is, Manchester, myself. It doesn't make a difference where we're from. We're all one unit. It's that unity that captures all of us. We're all bound, we're all webbed together. And unfortunately, when there's tragedy that strikes, that's often what brings unity. And if we're not going to be focused on that at all times, at least when there is tragedy, we should try to take something practical, something lemaisa, whether it will be long lasting, it won't, but at least for the short term, something actionable, something that really can make a difference in our lives of our friends, our community, our children, our families, our wives. So the inyan is tefillah. Tefillah is always so important. It's always what we should be working on, and this should be on the forefront of our minds, our hearts, something that we're trying to attain, to achieve? First of all, because that's our direct pipeline to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and secondly, as David HaMelech writes in Tehillim, Va'ani tefillah. David HaMelech writes, what am I? Who am I? Va'ani. David HaMelech says, he testifies about himself. What am I? Who am I? You think I'm the king, mighty king? I fight wars. I have knights and bishops and horses, and Ani tefillah. Says David HaMelech, I am prayer. My whole existence, my whole mahos, my essence is built, is sustained on one thing, and that is tefillah. Why is tefillah so important? Why is it so monumental, so fundamental? The answer is because tefillah is not just when we need from the Eibishter, when we need from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We come, we knock on his door and say, Hashem, I need parnasa, Hashem, I need children, I need nachas, I need shalom bayis. That's not what tefillah is about. It's also about that. But tefillah is much deeper, it's much deeper. What's the side of tefillah? The side of tefillah is Hashem wants us. Hashem needs us. Kaviyachol. Hashem wants a relationship with us. And when we look around at current events, when we don't have to look even so far to a young man that was killed being killed by a tree. Look at our own lives. How many things we need? Yes, we come and we daven every day. Baruch Aleinu, Rufa'inu, Yimi Parnasa, Shaduchim, Zibugim, children. There's so many organizations, Birkat Chaylim, Eita, all these things. There's so many needs. We're so futile. We have nothing. And we come to Hashem. Hashem wants it, but it's much deeper. The side of tefillah is Hashem wants us. That's where the equation, that's where the relationship really starts and ends with us in turn coming to Hashem. Where do we see this? We see in this parsha. In this parsha, the pasuk says, we know that Yitzchak and Rivka, they were waiting for children. And Shtei in pasuk, Vayas Yitzchak Hashem l'nech chishtoi. Yitzchak, Vayaser, he davened, and Rashi says that it was a very fervent tefillah. It was very, very strong, filled with passion. Ki akara hi, because his wife, Rivka, she was barren. And what happened? He davened to Hashem atar Rivka ishtoi. And his wife miraculously had a child. So just hold on with me for a minute with the cheshbon over here, but there's three important kashas on this pasuk, on this parasha over here. The first kasha is the order doesn't make any sense. You look at the psukim, they have to shtim, it has to read, it has to flow. So the first kasha is also Yitzchak Hashem. That first Yitzchak davened, he pleaded with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because ki akara hi, because she was barren. The kasha is, what do you mean? First she was barren, and then he davened. L'chari, that should be the order. So the order of the psukim, l'chari, make no sense. Aleph. Second kasha. What was the urgency? So his wife wasn't having a child. They were in a bad situation. A regular tefillah. But the Torah goes out of its way to highlight the immensity, the depth of his tefillah. It wasn't stam tefillah, it wasn't by spal Yitzchak, it was by aser. Rashi says it with tremendous kavana, storming the heavens, breaking the mechitza shabbat. What? Just say it was mispal. What's the whole lineage of your aser? We have to understand that. And lastly, the pasuk seems to go out of its way to tell us whose tefillah was answered, right? Rivka was davening and Yitzchak was davening. But the pasuk says, "Vayaser loy." Well, who's loy? Doesn't say law, it says loy. What's loy? Him and not her. Mashma. So first of the kasha, what happened? Was Rivka not davening? Rivka also needed Yeshua. Rivka also needed kids. So what's going on over here? Hashem only answered her Yitzchak's tefillah. We hear the three kashas. Number one, the order. Number two, what was the state of emergency? And lastly, why was it only Yitzchak's tefillah that was answered? So to answer the first kasha, which is really the aside, the answer says, Beinu B'chai on the Torah. Al Torah, unbelievable, life-altering yesod that we spoke about before, touched upon, but this is where it is. So there's Beinu B'chai. The reason why the Torah prefaces by As Yitzchak Hashem, the first thing was that there was a tefillah. Right? It was out of order. Says Rabbi Bechaya, no. The first thing was Vayaser Yitzchak Hashem Lechrishtei. The first thing was tefillah. Why? Because Hashem doesn't need stam to give tzaras, to give us needs, to give us wants, to give us inconveniences in our life. Hashem wants relationship. Hashem wants connection. Hashem wants us to be mezdabek. Hashem wants us to come after Him, to knock after Him. So says the Torah, the first thing is Vayas Yitzchak. The first thing is Hashem needed to set the stage that there should be a tefillah. That should be implemented. That should be a need. And then says the Torah, punkt, it happens to be, incidentally, Ki akarahi, she's also nakara. She's also barren. But the Yisod, the whole point of here, the divine ordination over here, the reason why the whole thing was set up like this is because Hashem wanted the tefillah. Hashem wanted the connection. Hashem wanted, He cleaved, He beseeched, He wanted Yitzchak's tefillah. What do we see from here? We see from here that tefillah is no joke. Tefillah isn't a band-aid. Tefillah isn't ex post facto. It's not when something bad happens to come to the Eibishter. Tefillah is dveikus. Tefillah is connection. Tefillah is relationship with the Eibishter. And Hashem wants that first. Hashem needs that first. And that's what the Torah is communicating over here. Vayasa Yitzchak Hashem. First was the tefillah, and it happens to be because his wife is barren. That's Yisod Aleph. Getting back to why was it that he needed a fervent tefillah that had to be so bekavana, had to be fire? What was the reason for that? So there's a famous piece, maybe not so famous, from Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, Tzaddik Yerushalayim. And he says the reason why it had to be this type of tefillah, a regular Vayspal wouldn't do justice, wouldn't accomplish what he needed, is because Yitzchak was fighting against so much. His own wife, Rivka, was davening that they shouldn't have kids. Why? Because Rivka foresaw in her nevuah that they're going to have Yitzchak, who was a Rosh Merusha, and she didn't want anything to do with children. She was so scared. I'm sorry. No, Esav. That Esav was going to come from her. Thank you. That Esav was going to come from her. She was so scared to have a Rasha offspring come from her. So she davened for Hashem, please cancel the whole children thing. I don't want to have anything to do with it. It's better for me to be barren my whole life. Better for me not to witness the nachas of a child, albeit it's going to be Yaakov Avinu. But I want to be spared from all of the agmas nefesh, from all the pain, all the anguish of having a Rosh in my midst, of having a Rosh as my child. So just abort the mission. Forget about it. I don't want kids. Comes Yitzchak, and Yitzchak says no. Yitzchak says, I'm a oile tamima. He was brought to the altar, and he knew there was so much more. And he was davening, firstly, against Rivka's tefillah, but more than that, says Rabbi Yosef Chaim. Avram Avinu, he had to cut years off of his own father's life, 5 years, so that they shouldn't overlap. There should be no overlap between Avram and Esav. So those 5 years, he was davening for his own father's Misa to come 5 years earlier. So that is why he needed a regular tefillah wouldn't work. It had to be supercharged jetpacks in order to accomplish against the will, against the tefillah of Rivka Imenu. That's why I'm here.
She wants to davening against the other.
Yes, exactly. And to get his father, and his father also is going to be nifter 5 years earlier. Mayor, it means the world that you're holding cup over here. I love it. Pound for you. Shout out to Mayor. Love you, bro. One more.
Another.
For you. So those are the two inyanim. That's why he needed this fiery tefillah. Okay? Getting to the third kasha, Vayaser loy. Now you understand the pshat and the pasuk. Why did Hashem only listen to Yitzchak's tefillah? The answer is because he was the only one really davening for children. He was the only one that was really in pain. He was the one that believed that he could have children. He was the one that's davening that I'm going to take Esav, I'm going to take Yaakov, I'm going to do Bayr B'tei, but I want children. I want to be the father of Yaakov Avinu. And that's why it was Va'aser Loi, it was his tefillah, and not law. It wasn't Rivka's tefillah because she wasn't davening for this. Beautiful pshat in the pasuk. Unbelievable. What does that have to do with us? We see three tremendous Yesodis that emerge from this pasuk. Firstly, we see the biggest yesod. Hashem only gives challenges not because he wants to pain us, not because he wants us to be sad and grumpy and sully and moping over our pain. No, it's because Hashem wants us. Hashem wants us to daven to him. Hashem wants us to be mizdabek with him. Rabbi Zwick, you with me in Eretz Bar Meir? Words ago?
Yeah, a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard this Maisa, but it's mitzvah lefarsim. Okay? I was Bar Meir words ago in the mirror for 2 or 3 years. Baruch Hashem, I maintain a relationship with him ad hayom. He's ish chashuv tzaddik ad ma'od, and some of the Torah he gave over in his Tefillah Vadim, all the Torah was unbelievable. But there was one story, literally, that stuck with me ever since I heard it in room 17 in Beis Yeshaya till today. And I think it's good just to hear the story. On this side of Hashem wants us, and the challenges are only a tuffle. It's only a secondary thing. It's just he wants us, okay? There was a young man in Eretz Yisrael, talmud of his. He didn't have kids for 10 years. He reached the level of yish, despondency. He was done. Like, okay, it's it. I'm throwing in the towel. Every day, every week, this younger man would come over and cry, literally with Rav Meir, Wurtziger, and say, Rebbe, it was another night, it was another round of pain, of tears, to no avail. And it went on for years as he was learning in the mirror, but Rav Meir was holding his hand in hand through the whole entire thing. And literally years went by like this, and every night he would say the pillow was soaked again, and our tefillas and our tehillim. Year after year, the same story over and over. Back to the doctor, more shots, IVF, v'chulu, v'chulu. The organizations, the rabbanim, the askanim. And time was thinning. They were really reaching their breaking point of. They went to every Rebbe, every segula, every bracha, every kaver. It was Lag BaOmer time. And the young man was approached by his friend, by his chavrusa, by his friend. And his friend said, Moshe, I want to tell you something. He says, I don't want to be insensitive. I can't imagine the pain, the plight that you're going through. But I have one last suggestion before you really throw in the towel. He says, I'm open to hear, of course. Please. He says, listen. He says, it's almost Lag BaOmer, and there's this huge mega segula brought down in this farm that if you light, I forgot the name of the thing, but when you go to the Rashbi and that's chus for the Hasidim, maybe know, you pour the oil on that flax ball before they light the madur by the Rashbi. There's a whole avodah for that. But if you get that chus by the Rashbi, it's kimat batuach. It's basically a promise that the schus is immense, it's unmatched, it's unparalleled. This schus is mamish, this is the answer, this is the key. And he said, wow, like, okay, thank you for letting me know. He went to his Rebbeim, I think he went to Rav Meir, and he asked the Shaila, and he said, okay, no, like, what can you lose? It's a big deal, try it, might as well. He's on the way to Meron, and it costs thousands and thousands of dollars to get this schus. He's on the way to Meron, and all of a sudden, he chapzach his soiris. He's ready, he paid for the schus, and he's getting himself like in the mode, like there'd be so many people and all the attention and the spotlight. And he's getting kind of nervous, and all of a sudden this emotion, this sentiment hit him. And he said, how is it possible that right now, after the 10 years that I've been going through Gehenim in this world, after all of the nights of soaking my pillow, and my wife soaking her pillow, and the tefillas, and the shachas, Milcham Harav, Yamin Aram, Ni'ila, Shofar, Lulav, all the mitzvahs, and all the things that we do to be mistabek the Eibishter. If I go ahead and do this, I light the Medura, and I taka have kids because of this chus, he said it's going to ruin my entire Yiddishkeit. if this is my Yiddishkeit, that after everything I've done, everything I've invested in all these years, didn't work for whatever reason, because Hashem decided. And I'm going to go and light this match, and this thing is going to light up, and everyone's going to be dancing, and that's going to be the key. He said, this is not Yiddishkeit for me. And I'm so scared, he told him after, he said, I was so scared that it would happen, that I would have kids, that I decided I'm turning around. Because if I had kids from that, it's going to ruin my entire Yiddishkeit, my yam, because all my tefillin, talis, everything is over, because I will not be able to comprehend, I will not be able to live myself for the rest of my life knowing that all that I put in, all that I've invested over these years didn't work, and somehow this worked. What ended up happening with him? I think Yitaka had kids. But what was the nikud of this story? What was the point? The point of it was to say that it's all about relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. What the answers are going to be, what the Seif Pasuk is going to be, that's for the Eibishter. We don't know. Hashem didn't give that. Hashem didn't give the key to the answers and clarity to us over here. But one thing is for sure that we take out of this story, this younger man that didn't have kids, is that he was willing not to have kids in order that it shouldn't stir, it shouldn't shake, it shouldn't ruin his entire Yiddishkeit, because he knew it was all about dveikus. He knew that Hashem gave me this problem, that I should invest in him, that I should run after him, that I should chase the Eibishter. And if I'm not doing that, and I find some other legal loophole, that's going to ruin the entire thing for me. That's the first yesod. The second yesod is that tefillah is cherished. Hashem wants us. Hashem desires us. We have a weapon called tefillah in our arsenal. And not only does Hashem say, use it at your disposal whenever you want, we say every day in Shemoneh Esrei, Hashivenu Avinu L'Sarasecha. Hashem, Hashivenu Avinu L'Sarasecha. Hashem, you return us to your Torah. It doesn't say we have to return, we have to get up and do all the grunt work. And Hashem said, we tell Hashem, Hashivenu, you return us. V'karvenu Malkeinu L'Avodesecha. And you bring us close to your Avodah. Hashem is willing, Hashem is able, Hashem is the capacity. Hashem desires us to get close to Him. He's pulling us in. It's all Hashivenu. Hachzireinu. He's doing the work. And Hashem gives us this koyach tefillah, literally that can do anything. It could bring children, it could bring nisim. It opened up the barren Rivka. And it's an opportunity, it's a tool that we can't take lightly. For sure we can't ignore it. But when we are davening, when we do realize that's all the Eibishter, certainly we have to tap into it. And lastly, that tefillah has the koyach. The third thing we see is to mamash change teva. People are barren, they can't have kids, and the doctors say, how many stories do we know, Baruch Hashem, of stories where they say, the doctor says you are clinically unable to have children, you are closed up, there's no chance, and suddenly something happens. Suddenly Hashem's Mishana B'yis, a tefillah, Tilim, Avay Asr, Hashem, when you tap in, when you have a fervent tefillah, we hear these stories, and it's unbelievable. The koyach tefillah and what it could do. Just to end off, there's a Maisa, nothing's famous. There's a Maisa with Rav Avigdor Miller. Rav Avigdor Miller said over the story with Rav Meilech Biderman's grandfather, the Lelever Rebbe, Rav David Lelever. Rav David Lelever was known to be a Kaddish Mirechem. He's known to be mamash a tzaddik from the second he was born. He was a Kaddish, he was a Tar, he was unbelievable. Someone went to his mother when he was a little older, and he said, Rebbetzin Lelever, Rebbetzin Biderman, how are you zeiche to have this Kaddish Merachem? It's unheard of. You don't find these Kaddish Merachems, and he's such a tzad. Look at his davening, look at his learning, look at his avodas Hashem, look at his anhagas, look at his family, look at his kids. There's something so deep, there's something so, where did it come from? And she shrugged him off, said, nah, nothing really special. And they were persistent, and they sensed there was something that she was hiding, and they said, no, really, they pressed her for an answer. And she said, I'll tell you the truth. She said, there's nothing crazy, but if there is anything I can remember, I remember that when my kids were growing up, at times my husband would go into his little room, his little study, he would open up a tefillah, he would open up a Tehillim, and he would smash his head against the wall, crying to the Eibishter, V'yizku lirois banim uvnei banim oiskim b'Torah v'mitzvos, to the point that he would faint. Those were his tefillos. So said Rebbetzin Biderman, if you want to know perhaps what was the key, what was the aside, the backdoor solution, how we result to this, maybe that's the answer. Because my husband used to smash his head against the wall crying, banging, and fainting because he realized what's at stake. He realized that it's his children, it's deiris, it's what we're put in this world for, and that the koyach tefillah is real, it could penetrate, and it could bring results. So getting back to what we started with, this tragedy, Hu hadavar asher dibarnu. This is the yesod. Hashem doesn't bring tragedies because he has nothing better to do. Hashem brings tragedies, Rachmana litzlan, lo yaleinu, to remind us that he wants us, to remind us that Shechina B'Gelusa, to remind us that he's in pain. And the way to wake us up in is the wake-up calls. But the way Hashem has to do this, unfortunately, October 7th, and the Holocaust, and all the other things, and the 4 Bachman that were killed in the Rachmana litzlan lo yaleinu, 1,000,000 times. But when these things do happen, it's incumbent upon us, myself, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to myself, to really say, what does Hashem want? Like the Chafetz Chaim said, what was going on in China? Because I realized there's Midas Adin that's striking this world, and I need to take from it. I need to improve. I need to not just grow, I need to change. And certainly, when there's a man locally a few miles away that was killed in such a tragic way, this is a very strong demonstration of the fact that Hashem is in pain, the Shekhinah is in Galus. When Hashem says, where are you? Hashem says, I need you. We're living in a world with Goyim, we're living in a world with animosity, with adversity, with anti-Semitism. Hashem keeps on giving these messages. It doesn't make a difference who's the governor, who's the... It's all the Eibishter. And this is just unfortunate, very local, tragic, the whole thing, so gory. How? What? It's the Eibishter. So let's take away something practical. This week's Parsha. V'aser Hashem, V'aser Hashem, V'aser Yitzchak, Hashem Noach Chishtoi. This nekuda of davening, of beseeching, of breaking the mechitzah shabarazan, whatever it is, first of all, that we need, we realize we can daven for ourselves, daven for our children, for our parnasa. It's all real. It's Hashem gives us the pipeline, and on a more macro level, realize that there's a whole system, there's a whole world, and we're all part of it, we're all unity, and we shouldn't only need to tap into when there's tragedy, but at least when there's tragedy, let's realize that there's something for us to do, to step up our game, to tap into it, and daven for the whole world, daven for peace, daven for the ultimate thing is Shekhinah B'Gelusa, Hashem is in pain, daven for him to come back, realize that when we have that connection, Hashem hopefully won't have to bring these calamities, these tragedies upon us, and may Hashem, we only know of good things, of Besuras Tovis, Yeshuas V'Nechamas, Umach Hashem Dom Akopanim, his Neshama Yisrael Meir Freeman, his Neshama Hashem Aliyah, his Almana Rachman Litzlan should be protected, should have everything she needs, and his Rachman Litzlan is Yisayim, should be taken care of by the Dayan Emes, by the Avinu Avarachman, the only person that really can take care. And again, we should only know of good things. Our family should be happy, healthy, and we should realize the koyach tefillah that we all have at our beck and call. Use it at any time, at every time, and realize that's all about the connection. We should all be zeicha to do that optimal level at all times. Thank you very much. Have a good job.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.